Hello, Hayes. My boyfriend and I are talking about getting engaged, and honestly, it's freaking me out a little bit. I know people say when you know, but I need to be really clear that I'm not that kind of person. I've never been 100% sure about anything in my entire life. I'm a chronic overthinker, catastrophizer, and with nearly every good decision I've made in my life, it didn't come without a lot of paralysis by analysis before I dove in. I'm as sure about my boyfriend as I could be about anything. All the important things are there, but some of the less important things are not. For example, I'm extremely family oriented, and I always thought I'd end up with somebody equally close with their family. My boyfriend is family oriented with mine. He enjoys holidays with my family, is extremely engaged while there, and supports me visiting home often. But his own family has a really distant relationship. He didn't know his sister was seeing anyone until she announced her engagement, for example. I discussed this with a friend, and she told me a rule we dubbed the 80-20 rule. Basically, you're never going to find 100% of everything you want in a partner. So you find someone who has at least 80% of the things you want and all of the most important things you need. And then you compromise or sacrifice on 20% of the more surface level, less important things. Still, I sometimes feel a little panicky when I consider that 20%. I'm really curious on what your thoughts are on her rule, and if you have any advice on handling doubts or uncertainty regarding engagement. Yours, lukewarm but not cold feet. I find it so interesting that as an example of like a less important or lower stakes need, something that maybe you would put into that 20% by your friend's rule is being family oriented. I find that so interesting that you chose that as an example, because it seems to me that being family oriented is very important to you. And maybe knowing that you are an overthinker and catastrophizer in your own words, maybe trying to come up with something that's a lower priority was in fact very hard for you. But that kind of struck me right away. But before, really, first thing I should say is that it's going to be okay. That's the number one thing I want you to know. It's going to be okay, and you're going to make the right choice. And the right choice is already in front of you, and you're not going to think this relationship to death. You're not going to overthink this relationship to death. Any choice you make about this relationship is going to be made from a place of strength and confidence and not fear. And let me be clear. Confidence and strength can still have some fear right next to it, right? I don't think confidence and strength means living without fear and living without uncertainty, but it means it's sitting in the backseat instead of driving the show. I know what it feels like to be in your shoes when you're overthinking something to the point of exhaustion and you feel scared that you're making the wrong choice. God, that fear of like, I think in the top 5 most immobilizing feelings in my life is definitely when there are 2 choices in front of me and I'm convinced that there is a right choice and a wrong choice, but I don't know which one it is. And that fear that, oh my God, what if I choose A, but B was actually correct? And if I choose A, then is it just going to be a domino effect of negative consequences for me? Sadness, disappointment, grief, tragedy. Like, is it all just going to cascade from there? And if you're an overthinker, catastrophizer, I wonder if you can relate to that. But I feel like I want to tell you all of those things to begin with because it's what I would want to hear, and it's what I want to hear when I feel stuck in the position you're in. So that's number 1. It's going to be okay. You are loved. You are capable of figuring this out, and you're capable of making the right choice for you. There I go with the right choice. Do I even mean that? You're capable of making a choice that's going to work. You're capable of making that choice. I think that it's really normal to feel uncertainty about any big choice in your life. I think depending on who you are, like each one of us will probably, our sense of uncertainty will be triggered or poked at by different situations. But overall, I think that feeling uncertain about big decisions, having questions, is normal and is not always a sign that something is wrong or that something is rotten. I do often think that our uncertainty is there to teach us something, and our uncertainty is trying to communicate with us. Maybe that's not a helpful thing. And I feel like whenever we talk about like uncertainty or overthinking, there's always, I generally steer clear of talking about like mental health diagnoses in this podcast because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a professional in that capacity. But like, if you have OCD, some of what I'm saying might not apply. But if you do not have, like, I'm bringing that up because of I think our uncertainty is here to teach us something. I think that could be a really unhelpful thing to say to somebody who is diagnosed with OCD, right? So please, while you're listening, like, give yourself kind of a gut check of whether what I'm saying might apply to you or whether it doesn't. But in my life, I think often that my uncertainty is here to teach me something. And sometimes it's here to teach me something about myself. It's not here to teach me something about the other person or the thing that I'm feeling uncertain with. It's here as an exercise in trust, in self-compassion. It's here to point out an area of my life where maybe I'm not as resolved as I thought I was, or I don't know. I think our uncertainty is here to teach us something. And I think your uncertainty could be here to teach you something. Now, what could that something be? Let's talk about that family-oriented thing for a second. I know I said in the beginning that I found it interesting that you said that you sort of categorized that as something that's less important. Let's say that that's really important. Let's kind of flip the odds. Let's say that being family-oriented is really important to you. Let's unpack why. So, what would it mean to you? Like, what does it mean if your boyfriend is not family-oriented with his family? Why could that be a potential problem for you? What are the fears that are behind that fact? Do you think it might mean that he might not be close with your family? Does it trigger something like maybe he's not going to be a present father? Will he not be family oriented with my family? And by my family, I mean perhaps a family that you want to build together if you want to have kids or pets. Can't forget pets. What is the fear there? Because I think through that line of questioning, you might begin to realize that you have some, like, it is about him because he is the person with whom you're thinking about sharing a life forever. But it's also about just the general uncertainties and fears you might have about starting a family with someone. I think it can be really hard for people me too, it can be really hard to wrap our head around the fact that even when you are certain about something, there are inevitably uncertainties because we can't control what happens in our life. We can't control the things that we might begin to feel or the ways that we might begin to grow. And the truth is, I think marriage or long-term commitment to somebody is a big exercise in facing uncertainty and kind of wrapping your arms around uncertainty and saying, okay, I know this whole thing is uncertain. I know this whole thing is going to be uncertain, but I'm here nonetheless. And when I say stuff like that, like marriage, long-term, committing yourself to something, there will be uncertainties. I don't think that's like a get out of jail free card. I'm not saying like, oh, it's okay if you get divorced. It's okay if you can give up easily. I don't think that. I think that there should be some like sanctity, and there is like, you get married, that means that you will do your very best to work through the inevitable uncertainties and problems that come up. I do believe that. But I feel like a great mistake we do our future self such a disservice by assuming that being certain about something could mean that it's going to be easy or that it's going to be the same forever. It's not. Like, stuff I was certain about when I got married, it's going to be our 5-year wedding anniversary in a couple of weeks, which is fucking crazy. 5 years. 5 years feels like a lot. I know, God willing, eventually 5 years will seem like infancy in our marriage, but it feels like a lot right now. And there are things that I wasn't uncertain about in the beginning that I feel uncertain about now. And I'm sure that I will find, I'm confident that I will find certainty about those things. And you know what? My current uncertainties will be replaced by new uncertainties later on, because to live is to have uncertainty. And I guess, what is the point in me saying all of this to you? I think that uncertainties are normal. I think your uncertainties are normal. But going back to the exercise, stay on track, Hayes. But going back to that exercise in the beginning, like, what is it? What are you scared of if your boyfriend isn't family oriented with his family? I could understand fear of how his behaviors or his attitudes towards his family could trickle into the family you have together. I will say, I don't think that that is inevitable. I think it's possible to grow up one way and to not repeat the way you grew up. I say that as a child of divorce whose mother was also a child of divorce. On the other side, not a marriage that I aspire to. And I see myself as a cycle breaker. I do think that being cycle breakers, and I don't know if your boyfriend identifies as the cycle breaker, but perhaps that's like a side note of this, which I'll get to in a second. Like, being a cycle breaker does mean looking at, okay, what are the things that were true about my family dynamic that I don't want to repeat? And it's not as easy as being like, I don't want to repeat them, so I'm not gonna. It's not as easy as that at all. I find it very challenging. I find cycle breaking to be a very challenging journey, a wonderful journey, but also deeply challenging and surprising. I think those two words go hand in hand. It is surprising how challenging it is, and it is surprising all of the ways that it shows up. But I hope I'm a cycle breaker. I hope that my marriage doesn't end in divorce, and I think being a cycle breaker does involve some intentionality. So I think your boyfriend, I'd be curious how he thinks about being family oriented and how he thinks about his lack of closeness with his sister and with his family and how it compares to your family. And I wonder if you've ever talked with him about that. It seems like it could be a really important thing to discuss. Not in like a, my family is close and your family isn't, let's talk about that because I have concerns way, but more of like, does he notice the lack of closeness in his family that you observe? What are his feelings about that? Your boyfriend may have not grown up in a house that talked about feelings or closeness or any of that. Like, he might not know. He might not know that it's okay to talk about. He might not have access to even thinking about whether it's okay to talk about it. And I think that engaging in the topic with him over maybe a series of conversations could be more telling to you than just like whatever your surface level uncertainty is telling you now. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think that the current uncertainty you feel about this topic is trustworthy if you haven't yet dug into it. If you haven't yet dug into it with him. And if you're going to share your life, if you're thinking about sharing your life with this person, I think that person should be someone that you are comfortable talking about this with, or that you are willing to push through the discomfort of talking about it. Because even with someone like, let me use myself, like even Brian, my life partner, I don't believe in one soulmates, but I think Brian is a soulmate of my life, person I love and trust, and all of that. All of that can be true. And there are still some topics that I feel nervous to bring up or I feel uncomfortable to bring up. But it says a lot more about me. Oh my God, why are my eyes getting all, I'm just a big fucking crybaby. It's that this is making my eyes well up. The stuff that I feel nervous to bring up often says more about me and the shame I hold about the topic, for example, than it does about like him. And I think realizing that is a great way to deal with the uncertainty, because you realize that so much uncertainty actually might have to do with you. And when it comes to deciding who you want to spend your life with, or who you want to have around you. I don't know. Realizing that some of the uncertainty is held within you is very freeing, because then it makes the decision to be with someone less scary, because the only person who you're really going to be with forever is you, and you're already stuck with you. It's like the thing that you're scared of or you're uncertain about doesn't actually live within them. It might live within you. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that well? I never know if I'm articulating some of these feelings and thoughts well, but you guys seem to often understand what I'm saying. But I'd be curious how your boyfriend feels about all of this. The engagement, the not knowing his sister was getting engaged, is very odd. I will say that. That is very odd. But you know what? How can I look at that a little more graciously? That's very sad. That's very sad. And not in a I pity him way, but that's sad. I don't think anybody sets out in their family. No one sets out with the goal of not knowing their sibling is getting engaged or that their sibling is dating somebody who they could get engaged, right? So I shouldn't say odd. That's a more judgmental reaction. That's sad. And I'm curious how your boyfriend reacted. I could see how you might be alarmed if his reaction to that wasn't sad, but was like, that's just how it is. But if that's what his reaction was, that's just how it is. I think, again, that says more potentially about the ways that he's just come to accept what his family is and what his family dynamic is, which is what you have to do a lot of the time. Like, we all do have to accept how we grew up and what our family dynamic is. We have to accept that. If you don't accept it, then you sort of can crumble beneath it. You limit your own potential. You limit your own chance of joy and happiness and being able to rebuild the life you want. So maybe he's accepted it, but maybe what you're looking for from him is maybe what you're looking for is an acknowledgement that the way he is with his family is not the way that you both aspire to be with your family. And when I say your family, I mean the one that the two of you might build together, either just as a couple, the two of you, or with children, whatever. Now for a quick break to hear from our sponsor. Have you ever looked in your closet and felt like none of your clothes feel like you anymore? I've been there, and I've made plenty of expensive mistakes while trying to figure out my style again. I've been working on this the last few years, and now I try to only buy pieces that I'm confident I'll wear for a long time and that already work with staples in my closet. That's why I love Nuuly. Nuuly is a subscription clothing rental service where for $98 a month, you can choose any 6 styles to bring home. I can rent that midi skirt from Alex Mill that I've been loving and see if it actually works with the gray sweater in my closet, or I can try a new pair of jeans from Redone, two of my favorite brands that both happen to be on Nuuly. Nuuly has thousands of styles from hundreds of brands. Everything from party dresses to premium denim to one-of-a-kind vintage pieces. If I love something, I can buy it at a discount, or if I don't, I can send it back and get something new next month. Nuuly has inclusive sizing up to 5X, plus tall, petite, and maternity. Shipping and returns are fast and free, plus everything is cleaned in Nuuly's state-of-the-art laundry facility. I love that Nuuly really curbs that I need something new feeling and helps me experiment with my style in an affordable and inspiring way. It also has no hidden fees if you spill on a piece or lose a button, and it's way less wasteful. They ship in reusable totes with no plastic packaging, and they repair items when they're damaged instead of just throwing them out. So if you're in that nothing feels like me stage, or you just want to freshen up your closet, Nuuly makes getting dressed exciting again. Nuuly is a great value at $98 a month for any 6 styles, but right now you get $28 off your first month of Nuuly when you sign up with the code HAYES. Just go to NUULY.com, that's Nuuly with 2 U's, and enter the code HAYES to get $28 off your first month. Nuuly subscription clothing rental. Change your clothes. And we're back. I didn't answer yet what I think about your rule, your friend's rule. Before I do that, though, you said that you're a chronic overthinker, catastrophizer, and with nearly every good decision hasn't come without paralysis. That's exhausting. You must be fucking exhausted. I resonate with what you're saying. I identify with what you're saying. And please, for the love of God, for all of us, it does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. Every decision you make does not need to come with such strife. And I don't necessarily have a recipe for how to fix that for you right now. But please know that that does not have to be the way you live. Is there anything more useful I can say about that? I think that's all I'll say about that for now. Okay, but going back to your friend's rule. The 80-20 rule. You're never going to find 100% of everything you want. So you find someone who at least has 80%. I do think that this is true. Like you're never going to find you're never going to find everything you want. I do think that that is true. But maybe there's a big but. You're never going to find someone who has everything you want. But I do think that you should be able to find, I don't think that you should settle for a person who is missing some of the really big things you want. I was just talking with a friend who is struggling with whether to leave a long-term relationship that she's been kind of in and out of. And I'm trying to think of how I can say this without being, without abandoning the trust. But there's a big, she's loved in the ways that she's loved in so many of the ways that many people dream about being loved, but it's sort of missing one big thing. And I was saying to her, like, it's not asking for too much to be in search of that one thing. Because if you don't have the one thing that really feels important to you, stimulating to you, if this person doesn't see you in one of the ways that you feel need to be seen, I don't know if that relationship could work. But the tricky caveat is like, I think a lot of people lack self-awareness and lack the ability to reflect on whether a need of theirs can be filled by someone else, or if it's actually a need that needs to be filled by the self. So sometimes we might be looking for someone to fix a problem we have, to fill a void that we feel inside. If you're somebody who seriously struggles with self-confidence, you're looking for someone who makes you feel like the most beautiful, sexy, gorgeous person ever. But if you don't recognize that that's actually something you need to work on, and you can still be with someone who makes you feel beautiful and who you're less aware of your body, like you can still pick somebody like that. But that will, if you don't also recognize that you have to do some of that work yourself, it's going to fade in the other person. Like, after a year, after 2 years, like their ability to fill your void will go away. So I think that this like 80-20 rule can work so long as you, as the person doing the rule, using the rule to measure your relationships, are also thinking about the role you play in the equation. And a surface level thing, like what would be an example of the surface level thing, since I don't think family oriented would be a surface level thing? To me, it's like they're less interested in fashion. Like I use that as example. I feel like I've mentioned that on the podcast so many times, that Brian is like less into fashion than I am, or like his clothes and style. And before I met him, I think I would have thought that I like wanted to date somebody who was at least like as interested in clothes and shopping. I don't even actually know if that's fucking true. I don't know if that's true. But I think the guys that I dated before Brian were more well-dressed, or just more like into what they wore. Maybe that's part of why it never worked. Who knows? But like fashion, that to me would be a more surface level thing. But there could be somebody in the world for whom like that's not surface level. That would be one of the really important qualities, and that is okay. For me, it's surface level. What's another example? Maybe like types of vacations we like to take, or like types of trips we like to do. Like for us, I don't know if we necessarily like the same type. I don't know if our sense of trips are always our favorite. Like we might like to do different types of things, but we are happy to do the other things with each other. So like that's something I could compromise on. Movie taste. Happy to compromise on that. But I don't think that you should have to compromise on the big things. I don't think you should have to compromise on the big things. So I guess where this rule gets tricky is like what constitutes a big thing and what's a little thing. But I guess that's up for you to decide. And on the point I made earlier about being able to talk with your boyfriend about this topic and this concern, putting myself in his shoes, like I would feel so ashamed if a partner came to me and was like, listen, being family oriented is really important to me, and like your parents are divorced, so I'm worried about that. And based on your letter, I don't think that you, as the letter writer, would ever speak to your boyfriend like that. But I guess I just want to say on behalf of everybody, you included, letter writer, like none of us want to be judged based on things from our past that we have no control over. And when you have this conversation, like your boyfriend's family not being family oriented is not something that he really has control over. What he does have control over is how he builds a family moving forward, how he talks about this with you. He has control over the future, the now and the future, not the past. And I think in any relationship, like we all want to be trusted in our relationships, and we want to be believed in that we can make a better future than the one we came from, and the past we came from. And I don't know your boyfriend, perhaps shame is not one of the things he struggles with, but in case it is, like bring that knowledge a little bit to this conversation. And it's hard to suss out like whether it's a red flag or not, because sometimes it is a red flag. Like sometimes a person's past does become a red flag in a relationship, whether they refuse to deal with it, refuse to acknowledge it, have adopted patterns from their family that go unacknowledged or undealt with. I've said that a million times, those words. Come on, Hayes, come up with some better fucking words. It could be a red flag. And I know it's not the most comforting answer to be like, you're going to have to talk about it and figure it out. And there might be some things that aren't problems now that could be problems 5 years down the line, because again, we can't predict what's going to trickle up to the surface. We just can't. So I think it's less about when you're choosing someone, I think it's less about being 100% certain that this person is never going to bring these problems to your life, and more being as certain as you can that this is a person who I feel is a good partner to deal with the uncertainties down the road with, if that makes sense. That's at least how I feel. Like I don't know what the future holds for Brian and I in terms of our life. I have no idea. I hope it is joyful and safe and loving and, free of tragedy and all of those things. But I'm not God. I don't know. But I know that I am with somebody who I feel certain that I'm with somebody who is the best person I could be with to deal with whatever will come. And I've only gotten more confident in that as time has gone on. And being more confident in that doesn't mean that I'm free of uncertainty. Let's be clear about that again. Because confidence and uncertainty can coexist. Confidence and uncertainty can coexist. I feel like I really needed to hear that right now. I'm closing my eyes for those who are listening to audio and not watching the video version. Confidence and uncertainty can coexist. In fact, they often do. And you are on the right path. We are all on the right path. And if you're not on the right path, it is, now is a perfect time to reroute. You can always reroute. And with that, thank you so much for writing in, lukewarm but not cold feet. I love you. I love all of you. And I'm so grateful for you listening to these letters. If you have an advice letter that you'd like to send, please send it to hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. That's hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. I love reading your letters. Please send them to me. It's a joy in my week when I get to talk to you here. I feel like I need to come up with a segment title for kind of like how late shows or any sort of news television show will have different segments. I feel like I need different segments for all of the different parts of this show that we might do. I'm not quite there yet, so thanks for bearing with me while I experiment with the second half of these episodes. But I kind of want a section that's picking your brain on something, asking you guys questions and sharing a little bit of my thoughts, but looking to hear your thoughts as well. One of those topics that I've been curious to get your kind of like a pulse check. Pulse check, that actually is a phrase that I use a lot in my friendships. I'll be like, hey, pulse check while you're, if I know that they're going on a trip with a new boyfriend, for example, I'll be like, pulse check on the trip. Or maybe that's not a great example, but something that they were a little nervous about, pulse check. Maybe that's a good segment title, pulse check, because I actually use that in my real life. Anyway, I wanted to get a pulse check on what you guys are currently feeling and thinking about AI. And I know that is a gigantic topic, and it's not really a topic that I feel super expert in, and which maybe is why I don't feel prepared to give you my full take on AI, but it is something I think about as it's becoming more and more of our lives. And generative AI specifically, I want to know generally your emotional pulse check on it. Do you feel like it is something in your personal life? Is it something that is helping you? Is it something that is causing you anxiety because you're worried about it taking your job or stealing your ideas? Or is it helping you get things done in a way that you would have never been able to before? Is it helping you with your disability? Is it like, what is the range? What do you feel about it? And how are you using it? And what are you scared of? I guess those are my questions. Back when I broke my elbow, in the first episode that I ever published unedited, which is how I'm taping these podcasts now, unedited, except for like, if I stop speaking for like 5 minutes in the middle, which rarely happens, I'll cut that 5 minutes. But these episodes are unedited, which I'm sure you can tell. But that was the first one I ever did that way. And I made a comment at the time that since I couldn't use my arm, maybe I would for YouTube thumbnails, maybe I would see if I could get AI to help me with the thumbnails. And the funny thing is, I don't even know how I would fucking do that. My knowledge of how to use AI is not developed enough that I know even what tool could help me create thumbnails. I'm sure I could figure it out very quickly. But someone had left a comment, a kind comment being like, I'm sure your take is more nuanced than this, Hayes, which I appreciate. Person who commented that you give me the benefit of the doubt, and maybe my take wouldn't be as nuanced. Not all of my takes are nuanced sometimes because I don't know enough yet, or I don't know enough about the topic, and perhaps this would be one of them. But they said it's disappointing how quickly people go to, I'll just get AI to help me with that, when the thing that they need help with could be something somebody earns money for, could be someone's job, and how quickly we go to, I'll just use AI rather than using an actual human with real skills. And I totally get that. I get it, and I guess I feel conflicted about it. Maybe conflicted isn't even the right word. I don't know if there's a right or wrong thing. I do think it's very sad how AI will replace real people's jobs. I also know that AI will give and has given some people real access. It's increased accessibility for people who might not be able to afford certain things, or it could help you learn a new skill, or a skill that's necessary for something you want to do that you might not be able to afford. And that tension of I can't afford it, and now because of AI, I'm able to do something that matters because it's free in this way, but also takes away from somebody who could be getting paid to do it. That tension, it freaks me out. I think I haven't really developed my own moral compass around AI use, and maybe that's what feels intimidating, is I feel good about some of the stuff I've developed a moral compass around because I've thought about it and I can stand by it, though there's always room for that to grow. But this sort of feels murky, and I'm curious how you guys feel about it. I do use ChatGPT mostly for where it's been most helpful for me in the past has been with some organizational stuff, and almost using it as a priority, helping me manage some of my priorities that I can really quickly, especially as a person who works alone and works for themselves and doesn't have someone to bounce things off of all the time. It can be really helpful to kind of calm me down and get a list of what I need to do and check. That's how it's been most helpful for me. And I mean, it would be a lie to not say that I use it in that way. So that's why I'm saying it. But I'm curious. I know lots of writers and authors feel really scared about how generative AI is using their writing. And I admittedly don't feel super worried about that, because I do feel while somebody could be write me something in the style of Hello Hayes, AI could never replace the spontaneity and the sense of surprise that's in my brain. So I don't really personally feel threatened at this moment, but that could also be a defense mechanism. It is happening. And maybe my natural inclination for how I deal with challenge is sort of I better fucking accept this and find the way to accept it, because that's the only way that I've learned how to deal with hard things, is to like radically accept it. So maybe I've gone real quickly into radical acceptance. I'm curious about how AI could be used to help people see other people's perspectives. But I mean, doing some loose reading on like people having psychosis talking to ChatGPT is also made me feel unsure about that. I guess on the spirit of uncertainty, I think it's probably pretty normal to have uncertainty about this topic. And I want to hear from you guys. I read a really interesting piece on Substack recently that was getting quite a lot of hate. And I don't like necessarily agree with this person's take. They were writing about how they are a bestseller on Substack, meaning people subscribe with money to read their newsletter. And they were saying that a lot of their pieces the ideas are theirs, but that the pieces are often structured by AI, or like generative AI is a huge part of their writing process. And pretty brave thing to admit, I guess. I saw somebody being like, somebody on Substack Notes wrote like, you couldn't waterboard this out of me, which I feel like that really captures the strong feelings about generative AI use, specifically in the writing community. But this person who does use the generative AI was saying that it is not coming up with their ideas, but it is helping make clear their ideas. And in that way, it's like an accessibility tool. And why shouldn't they use it? Like, it's an amazing thing that's allowed their ideas to be heard in a way that perhaps they wouldn't have been able to be heard because of that they wouldn't have been able to be heard before. I don't know. I don't know what my opinion is. And I think we should all maybe be more comfortable saying that sometimes. Like, I don't know what my opinion is yet. I feel pulled in a lot of directions, but I know I feel uncomfortable. And I'm curious I'm curious just to get a pulse check. Pulse check of how you guys are feeling about AI, how you're using it, if you're using it, what you're scared of, what you're excited by. Because there's got to be some good, right? There's got to be some good. My friend Cleo Abram just did an interview recently with Sam Altman, and I've only seen some clips from it, but I have to go listen to the whole interview. Her show, Huge If True, is all about like optimistic tech stories and how she's imagining a future where these technological advancements could make our world better. So she takes a very optimistic view, not toxic positivity, but she takes an optimistic view towards these topics. And she's interviewed she's interviewed Zuck, she's interviewed Sam Altman, some other really incredible scientists that I wish I'm embarrassed that I don't know their names, but I know the names of these fuckboys, for lack of a better word. I don't know if Sam Altman is a fuckboy, but perhaps you have to be a bit of a fuckboy to be in these shoes. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Tell me your thoughts. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to hear them. Is there anything else I want to tell you? Frances is 7 months old today. It's my baby Frances's 7-month birthday. We adopted her when she was 10 weeks old, 2.5 months. And if you guys listened to that episode from the beginning when we adopted her, you know that I was very uncertain. God, uncertainty is the theme. I was uncertain. I was so overwhelmed at the time by how much she consumed my attention. That was the biggest thing. Like, wow, this dog has consumed my brain in a way I wasn't prepared for. And she still consumes my brain, but it has gotten way more manageable. And she just has brought so much love and light into my life. And every day I just like look at her and am exploding with love and gratitude. Not to mention, I think she's one of the most gorgeous dogs I've ever seen. I'm biased, but I think she is striking. The other funny thing I'll say, I think it's funny, is that I've realized that like there's dogs and then there's dogs, like DAWG, and my dog Frances is a dog. And if you have dogs, maybe there's like doggy, dog, dog. None are better than the other, but it's a distinct characterization. And let me know what kind of dog you have if you have a dog. If it's a dog like me, then I see you. Speaking of, Frances is what I'd call a power chewer. The girl needs to chew. She must have, I don't know what breeds are chewers, but like Husky Shepherd, I don't know. That girl needs to chew, and we've been like struggling to find things to chew and eat because she swallows things too. So if you have a power chewer dog, I would love to hear what things you guys have used, that your dog likes to chew, will distract them, and that if they swallow, it's okay. We got a Nylabone, which she's loving right now, but it makes me a little nervous. I worry about her teeth. Like, is it okay to be chewing on something that hard? Anyway, not all of my anxiety about being a dog mom has gone away. Some of it is still very much there. All right, I think that's it for today's episode. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here with me. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the wide range of topics that we covered here. I love you. If you like this episode, please send it to a friend, or just come back next Tuesday. We have new episodes every Tuesday. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple if you listen there. Toss me a like on YouTube. And that's all I'll ask of you today. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.